Previously on the Senna career. This is it, the first race of the season. You guys have been waiting for this for so long, and I will not keep you any longer. But it is 5 lights, and away we go for the Senna career. Senna being the magician that he is. What a beautiful move that was down the inside. We now go down to turn 3. The safety car's been deployed. Well, that is very interesting. As you can see, we are down to 20 runners in the Grand Prix, but now come lap 17, we've got another safety car. Wow, it's all happening in this race, and he comes across the line to get P4. 12 points for McLaren, and also a 6th place for Jenson Button, which means there's 20 points in the bag for the McLaren team. What's up, guys, and welcome to the Bahrain Grand Prix today. Yes, we're here in the desert for episode number 2 of the F1 2014 Senna career, and I just want to thank you guys so much for the feedback on episode 1. If we could hit 130 likes today, then that would be awesome. I'll release episode 3 when it happens. We're going to get straight into today's episode and into the practice session where we are going to be doing our first R&D test of the season. As you can see, Senna has got to do a test to reduce the tyre wear, which the McLaren was suffering quite a lot from in Australia. But coming across the line for the first lap, doing a 1:36.8, and in fact being the first car out on the circuit. But we've just got to try and keep the tyre wear beneath 21% over these 3 laps. And getting a little bit of oversteer there. The tail end is very, very happy on this circuit. But coming around the final corner nonetheless and trying to complete this R&D upgrade. Hopefully it will be available for the Canadian Grand Prix. And we in fact overtake Daniel Ricciardo as the quickest guy in the session so far. Neither of the Mercedes have gone out at the moment. But the R&D test has been completed. And the McLaren guys will be working hard to get that on the car. But being best of the rest in the first qualifying session, Senna was more than satisfied with that. Now let's see how he gets on in qualifying. So as the sun set on the desert, Bahrain was now ready for the first qualifying session of this Formula 1 weekend, and it was immediately evident once again that Ayrton Senna was right on the pace from the outset, setting a reasonably good lap in Q1, enough to get him through on the prime tyres, but it was once again the Mercedes who was showing their dominance from qualifying 1, with the Sauber of Gutierrez and the Lotus of Maldonado being eliminated very early in the weekend. As you can see, once again the Caterhams and Marussias bringing up the rear of the field, but Q2 saw that Senna had a lot of pace on the option tyres, setting in a 34.3. And the Toro Rossos were once again eliminated, as was Kimi Raikkonen and also the Force India of Sergio Perez. But it was Q3 where Nico Rosberg really showed his hand, getting pole position over his teammate, with the Williams of Massa also challenging. Senna put in a much better qualifying than he did last time out. After his disastrous 10th place in Australia, he showed that he was right on the pace and put in a great lap to take 7th position. And it was Nico Rosberg who took pole position for the Bahrain Grand Prix, ahead of his teammate Lewis Hamilton in an all-Mercedes front row, with Felipe Massa in 3rd position. Once again, the best of the rest, with Daniel Ricciardo and Sebastian Vettel in 4th and 5th. Valtteri Bottas would take 6th place on the grid, with the 2 McLarens sitting in 7th and 8th, Senna bettering his teammate just about. Nico Hülkenberg was in 9th place for Force India, whilst it was yet again another disappointing session for Ferrari, with their leading driver Fernando Alonso starting 10th, but now it is time to get on with the race. Well, this is it then, it is time for the race, and jumping into the McLaren for the final time this weekend, and the second time this season, is Ayrton Senna. And there he is in his McLaren garage. His engineers strapping him in, and well, it's time to look at the setup and strategy for this race. And they're going for pretty high aero, in fact reducing the aero for the race to hopefully get a few DRS moves done. But obviously that qualifying session was pretty good, in fact, for the McLaren team. In fact, it was quite a vast improvement on Australia, so well, the only way was up after that, let's be honest. But now going on to the strategy. It's looking like a 2-stop race once again, going option, prime, option. Or maybe option, prime, prime. No, it looks as if we are going to go option, prime, option. The McLaren guys want Senna to just sort of stretch his tyres as far as he can. And in fact, pondering over the strategy. And I have in fact gone option, prime, prime. But now let's get out onto the racetrack. Team Radio.
Nice qualifying session yesterday, mate. But we think a top 5 is definitely possible today. Best of luck.
Well, the team are once again confident in Senna's abilities and feel that he can get a top 5 finish. But now, out onto the grid. And now we are facing the start lights for the Bahrain Grand Prix. The lights are coming on, and it's 5 lights and away we go. The lights were not on for long at all, but Senna off the line, heating those rear tyres once again and losing positions left, right and centre. In fact, the tyre temperature gauge is back to normal now, but he's going to maybe try and hook it around the outside and throwing his hand up in frustration at his teammates. So there are tensions down at McLaren already early on in this race. Back up to P7 after overtaking Bottas and going around the outside of Jenson Button. Massa's been squeezed out by Sebastian Vettel, I believe. And Senna may try and go down the inside of the Red Bull driver. Has he done so going into turn 4? Yes, he has. Pretty good traction for the McLaren driver, and Ayrton Senna, after a 4th place last time out in Australia, is back up to 4th position and trying to overtake Daniel Ricciardo. The top 4 are exactly the same as they were in Australia, just in a slightly different order. Ricciardo obviously taking the race victory that time. He's lying in 3rd position, but now coming towards this double left-hander. Senna getting a huge snap of oversteer and hoping not to lose that position to Vettel, who's going to try and go down his inside. Is it going to work? No, it doesn't look like it. It's because Senna, obviously with that Mercedes engine, has got superior power on the straights. But cutting now onto the end of lap 2, Senna less than a second behind Ricciardo, so he's going to hope to maintain that gap over the next lap or so, that he can get the DRS effect. But coming out of that final corner, this is where Senna seems to be making up quite a lot of time this weekend. Out of that final corner, whereas in the last round in Australia, the DRS was pretty ineffective due to, obviously, not getting good traction off that final corner. But as he takes on to -1 of fuel, he's got to be wary of that. But he really wants to overtake Ricciardo as quickly as possible, and cutting now onto the end of lap 3. Obviously, the DRS is active now, and he gets a huge snap of oversteer there. And the rear tyres are just lighting up on this McLaren. Obviously getting the DRS and running in rich mix. And he's still gaining on Ricciardo, although Vettel is gaining on him. And if he hadn't have had that moment, I think that would have been an easy move for Senna for the podium position. But Hamilton bangs in the fastest lap of the race, as a stray bollard on the circuit, which isn't that much of a novelty. But now cutting onto midway through lap 4, and this is the first DRS zone on the circuit. Obviously, one down the pit straight and one down this short back straight, which is a little bit ineffective in my view. But now it's looking as if he's really gaining on Ricciardo. So Senna trying to use that DRS zone as short as it may be to full effect, and still running in that rich mix, so he's going to have to be very wary of that. The McLaren guys will probably be on the team radio soon, asking for him to just sort of hang back a little bit. But he really wants to try and get this move done on Ricciardo as quickly as possible. As you know, this McLaren is quite bad on tyre wear, as was shown in the Australian Grand Prix, but gaining and gaining. Surely this is going to be an easy DRS move down the pit straight, and Ricciardo gains a little bit of time coming out of that final corner. But as you can see, the power of this Mercedes engine is way too much for the Red Bull. Senna going up into 3rd place and immediately going down into lean mix of fuel. Is he going to try and maybe do a little bit of fuel saving now? Because I think the McLaren guys and also Senna knows that they have not got the pace over the Mercedes this weekend. So P3 is probably about as much as they can hope for, but Ricciardo is still on the back of him. But it doesn't look as if he's going to get the move done down into turn 4. And now as we come on to the end of lap 5, once again another DRS zone, but Ricciardo half a second back. Is he going to try and make a move? No, the Renault engine in that Red Bull is just not good enough, and the Mercedes power is just a bit too much. But he's going to try and go down the inside. Senna has got awful traction off turn 2 and 3, and Ricciardo has got the move done. Senna, to be fair to him, gave him the room, but he's just pulled out of that slipstream and gone down the inside. Is he going to make the move? No. Ricciardo once again with better traction, and that's a lovely move from the Red Bull driver, really showing some grit and determination. But Senna coming down into this turn 8 hairpin now is going to fancy his chances going down into lean mix, because he's going to have to try and get as best traction as possible coming out of here. But obviously that is not going to happen, and skipping now onto the end of, the start of lap 7. Coming down once again into turns 1 and 2. Getting it a little bit caught up on the curb there, but as you can see, lap 7 now. Time for the pit stop maybe?
Okay, slight change in strategy. Box, 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 and give everything on the outlap. Repeat, box, box, box.
Yes, well, it's clear for all of you to see how dead those tyres are. And it's really, you know, this tyre wear so far this season, I'm sure Senna will be glad to see that tyre upgrade, hopefully come in Canada. But the McLaren boys are now working on the car and fitting a fresh set of boots. Yes, it's the Prime tyres. But you saw the strategy earlier was option Prime. I believe it said that, you know, I may have misread it, but... you know, they're going to maybe try and push for option Prime option, but, you know, that first stint, only managing 7 laps on the option tyres. This is going to have to be one hell of a middle stint, coming out just behind Romain Grosjean in the Lotus, but I believe Ricciardo is pitting last lap, and as the McLaren boys said on the team radio, give it 110% this lap, and it's been a decent lap, obviously catching up to Grosjean, but is it enough to get the jump on Ricciardo? No, it isn't. He's jumped us in the pit stops, and I tell you what, they're not happy in the McLaren box because they thought that Senna would be able to do the job on Ricciardo, and well, it hasn't happened. But come the end of lap 10, down to 20 runners in the Grand Prix, by the way, I believe that Sebastian Vettel has retired from the race, and he in fact retired quite early on, or at least I noticed at the time that he just sort of disappeared off the face of the earth. But as Lewis Hamilton bangs in the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, Senna once again wary of his fuel situation and catching ever more on Daniel Ricciardo. This is proving to be a great battle, a little bit like it was in Australia for a portion of the race. And come lap 11, just look at that fuel, -2 laps, and he's still running in rich mix as he gets caught up on the curb there out of the final turn. It really is a lethal curb. I tell you what, Lewis Hamilton's on a charge. Currently leading the Grand Prix, but we've got to concentrate now on this battle as Senna does the jump on Daniel Ricciardo up into P3 in a podium position once again. And hopefully, you know, the fuel saving now can come into play. The McLaren guys, I'm sure, will be giving him as many tips as they can on the radio. But now it's just about sort of banging in a few laps, obviously at the end of lap 14 now. Just sort of trying to bridge that gap to Ricciardo. It was 1.8, it's now still 1.8. So Senna definitely got the pace on Ricciardo this weekend, and coming towards the end of lap 17, you can see on the tyres that they're quite heavily worn. But recommended to come into the pits that lap, and he hasn't done so. But then Daniel Ricciardo is really gone a charge now, coming round his outside, and well, the Red Bull driver is really on a charge, as you know, that gap was around 2 seconds. But as the tyre wear starts to kick in, Ricciardo, is he going to try a similar move to what he did before? No, he doesn't. Senna a little bit more aggressive that time, getting his elbows out, and obviously up into P2 now, as I believe Nico Rosberg has made his final stop of the afternoon. But just look at those tyres once again. He's trying to sort of grit and bear this so that he can maybe do the options on the last stint. Don't want to hold up Nico Rosberg too much because he's not in a battle with Senna at all. But, you know, if it's going to waste time for Senna, he's not going to have any qualms about staying ahead of Rosberg. But come now the end of lap 19 and the start of lap 20, there's someone else in the pit lane there. I believe it's the back marker of the Caterham. As well, it's lucky that Rosberg in fact got through, because it could have been 3 wide coming down there, which would not have been nice at all. And sure, Senna wouldn't have been too happy about that. But end of lap 20, those tyres are suicidally bad. As you can see, Ricciardo in the pits.
Come on, mate, 110% this lap and box at the end of it.
Well, the team now are really cutting this strategy fine. It's very unlikely that we're going to come out ahead of Daniel Ricciardo now. But Senna comes into the pit lane for the final time this weekend, hopefully, bar any sort of mishaps in the final few laps of the race. But putting on the option tyres, they do indeed stretch that stint out. So, yes, it may have been a painful couple of laps for Senna, but I'm sure that they know that Daniel Ricciardo has indeed fitted the option tyres for this final stint. And obviously, with them being in the battle with the Red Bull team, and they have in fact got the jump on the McLaren, and while the Red Bull guys are going to be celebrating once again on doing a great job in the pit stops. Ricciardo ahead of Senna, and he is going to be raging underneath that cockpit. Currently in P5, but I believe there is still 1 car left to pit in front. And yep, up into P4, as you can see. I'm not quite sure who it was, but there was someone out of position slightly ahead. But yeah, that gap to Ricciardo in front is currently 1.3, but the fuel saving in the middle stint, yes, it was a very, very painful stint for Senna. As you can see, he managed to get it down to optimal fuel, so was on -2 laps at one point. So yes, that middle stint, like I say, may have been painful for him, but it has definitely paid dividends now, because these last 6 or 7 laps of the race can be used to charge down Ricciardo as he actually ticks onto -1 lap. But the sort of the middle sector, you can run lean revs and going into turn 1, but Senna goes purple, and he is really on a charge, looking to hunt down Ricciardo, a 1:34.5 I believe, and come lap 24 now. The gap is still 1.3 seconds, so cutting later on into the lap, and yes, going into this double left-hander, down to 17 runners, and a safety car is deployed once again.
Alright, safety car, hang back and save the tyres until the restart. We've got them on the ropes.
Well, there's confidence from the McLaren team. They believe that they can get the jump on Ricciardo if they save the tyres, and cutting to the restart of the race. Here we go.
Alright, go. Fuel looks marginal, but big push now. Repeat, big push. Rich mix if required.
Yep, you heard it there. Green flag conditions. Rich mix on the fuel, although it is marginal. Just 8 tenths behind Ricciardo now, but there are some back markers in the way that we've got to negotiate going down into turn 1. And Ricciardo tried to go past, but he lost his front wing. And that is surely it for the Red Bull driver. Oh my word. I did not expect that. Oh my word, that safety car period, which looked as if it was going to set up an amazing finale to this race, has just thrown a spanner in the works, and Ricciardo, yes it is indeed him who's lost his front wing. And oh my word, the Red Bull guys are going to be distraught, because that is at least 12 points down the drain. And I'm sure that Daniel would have known that he could have put up a great fight against Senna, although he had newer tyres. But cutting onto lap 29, and well, he just wasn't challenged, Senna wasn't. He managed to keep that gap on Ricciardo as Lewis Hamilton takes his first race win of the season. And oh my word, the final few laps of that race, I'm sure Senna will still be shaking from it, but all that means is that Senna takes his first podium of the 2014 season. His teammate recovers to 6th position after having a few mishaps, but wow, what a race. And as you can see, 3rd place for Senna, and a Mercedes 1-2 for the first time this season. I'm sure there'll be many more of them. But Kimi Raikkonen takes 4th place after qualifying 12th on the grid. And also 10 points for Fernando Alonso. 8 points once again for Jenson Button, with Valtteri Bottas only getting 7th. And there are points once again for Lotus, this time Roman Grosjean, and also Esteban Gutierrez, with Daniel Ricciardo limping home in 10th place. You can see who retired from the race, and it was indeed Sebastian Vettel who was the first retirement from the race. And oh my god, what a race that was. I believe it was Kvyat and Maldonado who came to blows to cause the safety car. Sergio Perez, also a disappointing race for him. But all that means is that the Drivers' Championship now looks like a 1-2 for the Mercedes team, with Ayrton Senna sitting there in 3rd position. Daniel Ricciardo in 4th. He will be bitterly disappointed with how today went. But there we are. McLaren 2nd in the Constructors' standings after another strong points haul today. And, well, for the first time this season, Senna is on the podium. He looks ecstatic, as do the McLaren team. They know that this car this season is good enough to challenge for podiums. Maybe not on a regular basis, but at least at the tracks where they're good enough to do so. And after that enthralling race, next time out, we will be at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the Canadian Grand Prix. If you liked today's video, guys, make sure to hit that like button. If we could hit 130 likes today, that would be absolutely insane. Hope you enjoyed it, and until the next time, where, like I say, we'll be in Canada, hoping to follow that podium up with another strong result. I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.